Hello and welcome to the SkyPyre Podcast. I know I sound terrible. I'm Matt. Today we're going to be talking about games in 2018. Since it is January, we just had New Year's, Happy Holidays, and all that good stuff. But 2018 has actually been a great year for video games. Also been a bad year in certain areas, but we're going to be focusing on the good and the great. So each of us have picked our favorite of this year. So Nick, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, basically, despite the fact I've only played 4 rounds of it, my choice for the best game of 2018 is Beat Saber, which is a HTC Vive and I believe an Oculus game as well. It's for both.
I think
I didn't know that until I'm looking at their website right now.
Well, I'm pretty sure it's also on PSVR.
Yeah, it's on PSVR as well, and it has the most wicked soundtrack since Doom.
Do you think the Switch's motion controls would be able to handle that game? Is it possible on the Switch?
I really don't think so.
I
wonder if they're working on porting it to that.
That'd be interesting. Anyways, so the reason it's my pick for 2018 is because for me, it's taken me quite a lot to get interested in the VR sort of arena. There have been a handful of things like Robo Recall and some other stuff that have done pretty good job of making use of VR for what would interest me. Job Simulator and Budget Cuts, I think, are also good options. But the thing about Beat Saber is that for me, that's the one game where I saw the ad for it, and I initially discounted it because I was like, oh, VR, like it's not going to interest me. And then I saw it and I was like, I want VR now. And for me, like, if for no other reason, that's why it's the best game of 2018. Because first off, I didn't play any of the blockbuster PlayStation 4 games because I don't own a PlayStation 4. Tyson will cover that, I'm sure. But it's somehow taken the qualities of VR that play best together and turned them into, for me, what is a cohesive game. Because for the most part, a lot of VR was, okay, so how can we use the gimmick of VR to get something interesting across, right? So Job Simulator is a pretty good example of a game where it's like, the neat thing here is you can pick stuff up and put stuff down, right? And it's like, cool. If you had Job Simulator with a mouse and keyboard, which can you even play it like that? Possibly.
I don't think that's
I
an
don't
option,
think you can.
no.
But it would be an incredibly lackluster simulation game. But it's only because it's in VR you're like, oh yes, this is fun and neat. So the thing about Beat Saber is, while it certainly would not be as engaging if it wasn't a VR game, it first and foremost is like a high intensity rhythm game. Secondary is that you make use of VR in the most creative way, in my opinion,
I think
has been done.
They pulled from the idea that people have always wanted like a lightsaber Jedi Knight motion controls game, and it's never really been done well. And I'm not even sure if it can be done well until you can get to the point where the game can stop your blade mid-flight. You know what I mean?
Yeah, until it meets
really,
resistance.
Yeah, and so this takes the fun aspect that does exist in that kind of game and makes it work. And that's just slicing through things like
butter.
kind of takes the fun of the, like, what is it, Fruit Ninja, and mixes it with Guitar Hero, and then that idea of a Jedi sword fighting game.
And the other thing too is there's all kinds of interesting little ways that they've made use of VR for, again, to solidify that one purpose of having a high intensity rhythm game, right? That forces your attention in multiple ways, right? So you have the red and the blue blade, and you have to hit the red of the blue block. So there's some thought to that, right? You can't just swing it left, right, and center, which for the most part in VR games, if you just kind of flail at stuff, you'll get your job done.
Right.
This one, you will actually lose for doing that. You have to dodge using your headpiece. You have to dodge these walls that are coming at you. You have to duck under them, stuff like that. There are bombs that you have to avoid hitting. So you actually have to make use of that 3D space. to me, it's a fantastic use of VR and that interactive medium, and it makes use of all of the fundamentals of VR, right? Like it despite the blistering pace and all that stuff, it doesn't make me, feel motion sick. Albeit I'm not a particularly motion sick person when they put me in VR. But this, I feel like I've seen a lot of people pick it up and play it and enjoy it and immediately understand how to use it, which is part of the benefit of the VR. But at that blistering pace, you'd think some people, especially if they're not used to that kind of thing, they'd be thrown off by it. But nope, most people can pick it up and play it pretty well from what I've gathered.
And it's just so much fun.
And on top of that, they layer on the flavor. There's these little sound cues every time you perform a strike. If you just glance the block, it still counts. It doesn't break your combo, but it's worth less points. And it's a little kind of sound. But if you straight up cut right through the middle of it and you get a good hit, it's this meaty, bassy boom, right, that accents every hit. It gives you this power. And I heard described as the way that they do the rhythm, you get into a flow, right? Because they'll have verses. So it's it's almost like there's choruses and verses or different stages in the song, and they'll go you'll go through these different verses, and you'll get this rhythm down, and then you have to switch up the rhythm, so it almost feels like dancing, and it's incredibly satisfying to pull off. And I think that level of satisfaction, that level of polish that goes into sort of the high intensity visuals without being distracting. A good example of that was Robo Recall, another VR game, has a lot of visual effects in it, which give it this really nice, high quality aesthetic, but it also blasts you with special effects in a way that, especially in VR, can be disorienting or a little bit distracting, or incredibly distracting, as the case may be. So in this case, you have this neon-fueled lightsaber world, and they somehow made it not distracting. They made it highly focused. So I don't know if I've talked that into circles, but for me, that's the best game of 2018 for what I would consider to be a rather visionary take on VR, and the best rhythm game to come out since some of the early Guitar Heroes.
Cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Excellent choice. Yeah, it's definitely up there for me if I'd gotten more of a chance to play it. Because I'm a huge fan of rhythm games. I was a Guitar Hero addict back in the day.
And I am too, and that's one thing, is it reignites that excitement,
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't help that I also downloaded the soundtrack and consistently listen to it. So now when I'm sitting there playing them, I feel like I'm playing songs that are familiar, right? They're not new. I know the rhythm and where everything's going to go. So I'm excited whenever I eventually get my hands on a 5.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to dig into this one.
Yeah, every chance I got, mostly we're at conventions, but every chance I got, I would line up and just go back in line and just as much as you can, because I don't know, there's something about it. I think it's everything that Nick described it pretty well, but there's something. The guys who made it, they had an idea and they nailed it so well that, I feel like it's one of the first VR games that really shows the potential of where VR could go. It just stands apart from everything else that's been out there, I feel.
And that's what I'm saying. It's because they designed a game first with VR in mind, as opposed to going, how can we use VR, and then trying to slap a game on top of it.
Yeah, which is not the way to do it. It's like you guys discussed in a previous podcast about multiplayer. You have to design with it in mind. You can't slap it on later, but I think that there's also the other direction as well. Mm-hmm. You need to design a good game before you worry about how the multiplayer is going to work.
Mm-hmm. It's not a miracle product.
It's not a miracle product.
I will counter what you're saying slightly in that I don't think it only works in VR. I think Beat Saber would work fine if you just had a screen with motion controls. So I think it could have been a Wii game. it could have been an Xbox
Connect.
a Connect game.
Nothing can be a
But-
Connect game.
But the fact that the motion controls and the Vive and the Oculus are so good
Yes.
and finally are like coming into their own as an actual useful thing, I think that's why it worked. And the VR just adds the intensity of that you're in it, but I don't think it requires VR to be a good
You're
game.
right. It would work with motion controls, and I even argue it would probably work. In fact, you might say that you've mentioned Fruit Ninja. You could probably do it with a touchscreen too. I'm sure.
Yeah.
That'd
Let's
be
make
engaging
let's get in
experience.
contact with them. We can make Beat Saber mobile.
Yeah, Beat Saber mobile.
No. Let's not kill it.
All right. Well, I think.
Or we could just rip it off and make our own. It'll be called
Rhythm Slicer.
Rhythm Slicer. Yeah. Copyright SkyPyre.
2019.
You heard it
All
here
right,
first.
I think I've talked everyone's ear off about that. Let's hear from somebody else about what their 2018 pick was.
Sure, I'll go. Well, full disclosure, mine was going to be Beat Saber, but
I stole it from him.
there you go.
I stole it from the past.
Now, I wish I'd played more of the games that came out this year because they were all awesome, but I did not have the chance, really. The only real chance, apart from Beat Saber, to play was Spider-Man for the PS4, and that came out a while back this year, but I only got to play because we were doing Extra Life this year, and Tyson brought it. Thank you very much, because, oh boy, that was a blast. So Beat Saber would be my number one, but my number two, I believe, would be Spider-Man, just because just everything, just playing it was a blast, and it just felt,
like Spider-Man.
You felt like Spider-Man. I know it's been said a million times, but you just felt like you flowed through every motion that you wanted to do. The swinging was great. The navigation, the combat, all of it was just fun and so well tuned and so finely tuned that it just worked beautifully. And from all the reviews you've been seeing, they're all super high, and I actually read a couple reviews, and one of the reviews that they were saying was like the good, the bad, and the ugly, and I was like, oh, well, the bad, let's look that up. And throughout the entire article was all good, and then when I got to the bad part, all it said was, personally, I think a little less, what do they call it, time events, quick time events during boss fights would have been nice, a few less. Apart from that, though, it's perfect. That's the only thing that this guy in his review had to say negative was maybe a little less quick time events. But apart from that, I've heard nothing but excellent, beautiful things about it, and I think that just speaks for itself. I mean, Tyson, played through it.
Yeah.
It's one of the very few games that I have 100%ed, mostly because it's a pretty easy game to 100%, honestly. But it was a game that just caught me as soon as it started, and I just could not put it down. One of the common critiques over the internet was there's a few missions where they kind of break it up a little bit, where you play as Mary Jane or as Miles Morales, and I mean those are kind of boring.
I didn't mind those sections.
I bought Spider-Man because I wanted to play as Spider-Man, and I mean, if you
Miles
got
isn't Spider-Man?
I don't want to spoil anything, Matt, for anyone who hasn't had the chance to play it yet. But if Miles Morales were Spider-Man in the game, it would be cool to play as Miles Morales Spider-Man in the game. But that opportunity never comes up, unfortunately.
I was saying that my issue with Spider-Man is that I felt that there wasn't a lot of interactivity, like not a lot of emergent type systems other than the crimes. You know how like when you're playing Breath of the Wild, there's lots of like physics objects and there's lots of like emergent things happening in the open world.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
Whereas Spider-Man felt more that I was just playing the story, and that the open world, the fact that it was an open world was just they had to do that because it was Spider-Man, that kind of thing. if that makes sense. I feel like they didn't take advantage of the open world enough, and maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that allowed them to focus more on the story and more on the visuals and more on the animations, which were top notch.
Yeah, I think I would be more in the ballpark from what I was able to consume of the game, that it definitely made better use of the resources in the narrative in the story, and that the extra stuff that was there, that emergent gameplay, stuff like crimes and collectibles and stuff like that, was really just there for the people like Tyson who wanna do as much as possible, or things that could make them easily build systems to unlock the different types of different suits. Which that's how you do that, right? Like by crimes and collectibles and so on and so forth.
So everything that you do in the city gets you some sort of item that you can use to like upgrade your weapon, or your gadgets, I should say, not your weapons. You know, like upgrade suits, upgrade powers, upgrade etc.
Yeah, so I think that definitely going more the route it did, as opposed to the Red Dead Redemption route, where they were like, you know, when it's cold, New Yorkers have scarves instead of, you know, like all those little details that people praise Red Dead and Grand Theft Auto and stuff for, that Rockstar does. I think that the resources they made use of elsewhere in the narrative was probably better spent.
So the thing that I was talking about for Spider-Man was the story. I don't know if we got that part in, but I was saying that it was my favorite Peter Parker Spider-Man story. It's one of the few stories that has actually moved me emotionally at the end. Like I'm not ashamed to admit that I legit cried at the end of that game.
Really?
There's not many.
How come? Because of the narrative structure? Because it was over?
Because of the narrative structure. Just the way the ending plays out. It hits you right in the feels, or at least it did for me. The way they built up how the plot was going to go, and then the climax of the plot was extremely emotional.
So they managed to pull the ending off, is what you're saying?
Oh, absolutely. They pulled it off like exactly perfectly for me.
Interesting, because for most narrative games, in my opinion, the ending is always the flop. Or at least more times than it isn't, it's the flop. I don't know if you guys have experienced the same thing, but
for me, I wasn't a huge fan of the story of the game. It was a good story, but it wasn't anything special as far as I could tell. Not to poop on Tyson's parade there, but
it's okay. My opinion's mostly worthless anyway. So
come on, man.
And we're back.
Okay.
Tyson's like, I get to share my valued opinion, and we're like, valued what?
Well,
so the problem is it was too long ago. I can't describe why I didn't like the narrative that much.
Then so clearly it was fine.
Well, it sounds like you'll have to play it again.
I'll have to play it again.
New Game Plus. Jump out the window in your underwear.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think that covers Spider-Man. Overall,
so was that yours, Matt's, or was that Tyson's?
It was mine.
No, mine's another PS4 exclusive.
But Tyson could speak more to it because he has the game he played throughout. But because Nick stole mine, I had to go with the other one that I really enjoyed, but was the only real one that the new game that came out that I've gotten to play, even if it was just a little bit. So, yeah.
Okay. Let's hear what Tyson's is.
So my game of the year, my favorite game, was God of War. I'll give you guys a little story. So around the time that God of War came out, my mom was in Florida, so I had the house to myself, which meant that I invited my best friend over, and we just kind of hung out at my house most of the time, and we wound up playing God of War together. And he has a lot more experience playing God of War in the past than I do. So he's extremely familiar with like Greek mythology and a lot of the stuff that happened in previous God of War games, as well as he's pretty well versed on that mythology on its own outside of the God of War universe. So it was extremely helpful having him there so he could help me fill in the blanks. Initially, it really disappointed him because he, like I said, he's a big fan of that mythology. And then this God of War game is Nordic mythology, which is completely different.
Mm-hmm.
I was a big fan of it because as I was playing, I learned a lot about Nordic mythology, and I really enjoyed it. So that the way they explored the mythology in that game was very interesting to me. One of my favorite aspects of the game was how they told the stories in the mythology. So basically, the way this would work is as you played the game, you could, if you explored a little bit, you would find these like murals essentially that the giants would leave behind. And they explained stories of like what happened to giants or, you know, Nordic people, Nordic gods, etc. Just stories of things that happened in the mythology. And Atreus, the boy, he would give a quick explanation as to what it was, just from what he could tell. But then they introduced this character later on who is literally a talking head.
Okay.
I can't remember his name now, unfortunately, but he's basically like the all-knowing person. He's been around since the beginning of time. He's witnessed all these things. He knows all this stuff. And a lot of the game has you traversing in a boat sometimes. So you'd like cross rivers and lakes and stuff in this boat. And if you had discovered this mural, the next time you got into a boat and you had this talking head guy with you, he and Atreus would discuss what happened in this mythology. So the head guy would give you this exceptionally told story on what happened, and it was probably the most invested I've been in a mythology. Like, I actually feel like I got a decent education out of the way they presented the lore in that. It also reminds me a lot of Halen, the way you guys presented your lore in Halen.
Oh, okay.
We did it first.
You had the you did it first. It's true. Santa Monica Studios are getting sued because they stole your way of presenting lore. Yeah, you get a similar thing where you presented your lore on murals and you had Sharp present it to you. But what I particularly liked is the way that they turned something that can be particularly boring, where you're just kind of, you know, just canoeing around, and they turned it into a way to dynamically and excitedly deliver exposition.
Does God of War do the thing that Uncharted 4 did, in that if for some reason you interrupt what they're saying, do they pick it up naturally later?
Yes, they do. So let's say they're talking about something, and like it could be something as simple as like you ran into like a tree while you were canoeing. The head would like stop himself and be like, "Hey, watch where you're paddling," or something like that, and then he would naturally get back to
like, what were we
where he
talking
was in the
about?
story.
Oh yeah.
Really? That's really cool.
Yeah, so that's another good way they did that, was that if it catches a part where the dialogue doesn't finish, it'll pick it up where you left off beforehand, so you don't miss it.
Huh.
I think the first game I saw do that was Uncharted 4, and since then I think maybe Spider-Man's done it. Definitely Red Dead, and this game, and there's probably a couple others, and it's pretty cool.
Spider-Man
Gears of War actually does that.
Which one, sorry?
Gears of War.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah.
If you're in the middle of a conversation and you walk out, anyone who's played it remembers when they force you to walk slow. It's terrible, but you can if you press the sort of the sprint button, your guy Marcus Phoenix will say they're like, "Not now," and then the conversation will close. And if you engage in combat, he'll be like, "Oh, hold on," and then that information will be delivered to you. Especially in the third game, it'll be delivered to you in more of a hurry. Type of thing.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
To follow up. Sorry, the name of the head that I was talking about is Mimir, and he is in Norse mythology. He's basically like the god of knowledge.
Well, there you go.
Okay.
Appropriate. So, God of War won Game of the Year at Game Awards, right?
Yes, I believe it did.
Interesting.
Good that we agree with each other.
Yeah,
it's on my
the rest
list
of the world,
to play.
apparently.
Yeah.
Um, the combat in that game is actually really well refined too. I remember watching a video because they give you, every other God of War game you have the chains, right?
Yes.
And then this God of War game you get the axe. And I remember watching a video on how the game directors had made the axe feel as like clunky and powerful as they did. It was really cool how they did it. Basically, what they did was they, uh, when you swing your axe, it triggers the animation, and then when the axe hits, it freezes the axe in place as well as like part of your hand and your arm. So when you continue through with the slashing animation, it locks into the person, right? And then your shoulder and like part of your body kind of carries through as you hit them. So it's something really really subtle that like not everyone would notice unless you really really looked at it. But it's a great way to give like power to a weapon to make it really feel like, man, I really just fucked that guy up with this axe.
And it lets you know that your attack hit.
Yeah, that too. One thing that I really liked on a similar vein from watching, again, I did not play this one because it was a PlayStation 4 exclusive. But I really liked the visuals of when you could throw your axe, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And when it comes back and you catch it, the follow through, like the heft in that animation is incredibly satisfying.
And the sound too, it makes like a really nice like thunk sound as it comes back to your hand.
Yeah. Definitely a huge attention to detail with that game. It definitely, in my opinion, deserving of that award.
Mm-hmm.
The animation and sound design in that game was just spectacular.
Spectac. And then I saw, I think it's the same video as Nick's talking about, but I saw another where he's talking about how Atreus's combat system worked, because he dynamically helped you during combat. So he would like jump on someone's back and then yank him backwards so his neck is protruding, so you can really get at him. And like, apparently there was this huge crazy network of AI going on with Atreus during your combat that has never really been done before, but it just felt so natural.
Yeah, the thing with Atreus is that like his role in combat doesn't really come in until maybe like a third of the game, and then it's not like it doesn't really become effective, I'd say, until like halfway through the game, because that's when you really start to notice this thing. Like you start to notice like, hey, Atreus has just tied this person up and it's weaker and easier to hit. Another thing about Atreus, just from my own personal experience when I played through, is that the way they made his character has just the most hilarious character arc, where it's like initially you kind of have a mixture of like feeling bad for him and also not liking him because, well, you don't like him because he's like an annoying child at the start of the game. And then you also feel bad for him because his dad is Kratos, who's kind of, he's a little rough around the edges.
Just a little bit.
And then, their relationship grows and you start to build up to this character. And then there comes this point where Atreus learns who he really is. And it just inflates his ego so much that he becomes such a little prick.
Spoilers.
So, Tyson, are you saying that as Kratos' arc of like, I hate you, I love you, and all that, you're feeling it as Kratos does?
Yeah, it's really great.
Good. That's really good then.
It's great how they designed that, but also like it's just like such an up and down curve where it's like, I hate you, I love you, I hate you, I love you, I hate you, I love you.
So I have to ask, Tyson, do you believe that the sequel to this game will be called Boy of War?
I mean, I'm really interested to see what they do with the sequel because oh man, I want to talk about this, but I can't without spoiling it.
Don't spoil
Basically, I'll just say that the way that Norse mythology works, I'm very interested to see how it plays out if they do it.
Interesting. And you think there'll probably be a sequel?
I mean, it made them a lot of money.
And this game comes a couple years after the latest or the newest God of War, which is, and this seems to be a big reboot of the whole series. So I
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
doubt they'd bring up this franchise years later and put all this effort to just leave it at one game.
Okay,
You know.
that's fair.
Tyson, how would you compare the boy? What's his name?
Atreus?
Atrahasis.
Atrahasis. You know, the boy.
Atrahasis is I'm referencing a different piece of mythology there. Atreus, yeah. How would you compare his AI to? Have you played BioShock Infinite?
Parts of
I
it,
have.
yes.
Okay, but you know the girl in that game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also,
Where you,
hi, Jasmine.
interact with her. Is he more involved in gameplay than she is?
Oh, most certainly.
Yeah.
She was incredibly passive, but very well done in that sense. She was designed to be passive.
Yeah. She mostly just threw you items, I guess, now that I think about it.
He can throw you items, and he will throw you items sometimes. He also has like special abilities, I guess, that he can call forth with his bow. And one of them is literally just squirrels that burrow into the ground and get things for you.
Oh.
That's interesting.
Okay.
So if you want Atreus to be more of a support than a damage person, then pick the squirrels, because they'll heal you and stuff.
Okay.
That's hilarious.
Um,
Sounds like a pretty endearing choice from Tyson. What about you, Michael?
Okay. My favorite games that I played this year aren't 2018 games, so I'll just list them off really quickly, and I'll get to my 2018 game. Uncharted Legacy, Lost Legacy. It was a DLC. It was like a separate DLC for Uncharted 4, and it was so good.
That is the length.
And the reason
of a
why I thought it was
AAA
really good. What'd you say, Nick?
It's the length of a AAA title.
Yeah, it's like the length of a AAA title. And what I liked about it so much is that Uncharted 4 was much more grounded, and Lost Legacy got back to what I love about Uncharted, and that's just the giant, crazy temples and stuff like that. And I think they just improved on all their new gameplay things they introduced in Uncharted 4, and so I really enjoyed that game. But it came out last year. And Sonic Mania really hit me in the nostalgia. I really liked some of the old Sonic games. So Sonic Mania was a nice. I think Sonic should just go back to 2D and make like a new art style and everything.
Yeah. Some
just
games
do a 2D
are not
games.
meant to be 3D. Some games don't work with too many dimensions.
And then Firewatch was a really cool game.
Great game.
The ending was a little disappointing, but the build up to it was incredible.
For me, the ending was very interesting. But
yeah,
that's a whole other day.
That's a whole discussion. But yeah, I'm gonna go with the lame choice here because I haven't really played a lot of games this year, and it's Red Dead 2.
What do you mean the
Red Dead
lame
Redemption
choice?
2. It's like such an obvious choice. It's like the top three choices, and we made them was Spider-Man, Red Dead 2, and God of War.
And those were like the big blockbuster releases this year.
Yeah, I guess the AAA top. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and as indie developers, I like to support indies more, but I really just didn't play a lot of games this year.
Yeah.
I think there is something before you get going on Red Dead that I noticed as a trend here, with the exclusion of Beat Saber, which is my entry, is a support for single player games, which is interesting, and I'm very glad that 3 of the blockbusters that have made it onto our list and that have been definitely some of the biggest releases of this year are single player games.
Well, see,
there's multiplayer in Red Dead, but like that's not why you get it, right?
And that's interesting because I believe in a past podcast a couple episodes ago we talked about the idea that we don't know, but the idea that maybe AAAs would start going away from single players, possibly just because multiplayer seems to be making tons of money right now. But
it's definitely
I don't know if
much more cost.
We discussed the idea of like what if, but like Nick said, these 3 huge games came out and they're all single player, so it looks like they'll keep going with it.
Yeah, I think this was the year that multiplayer started to falter a little bit to a certain extent.
probably
Obviously,
started.
Fortnite went huge, but apart from that, Fallout 76 didn't work.
Black Ops 4 they removed all the single player, and it's been a lukewarm response.
Actually,
yeah, I haven't even heard much about Black Ops 4. And
what's interesting as well is, Titanfall 2, after
was
Titanfall,
praised for its single player.
Yeah, after Titanfall 1 came out, and everyone was like, "Where's the single player?" Titanfall 2 came out with the single player, so
An
it's
exceptional,
an interesting,
exceptional single player.
yeah, it's an interesting reverse of, what seemed to be happening. So yeah, you might be right about the multiplayer thing, Michael.
Mm-hmm. And another thing I'm happy about with these games is that they're not like live service games. And what I mean by that is like what Anthem is going to probably be,
Battlefield,
70, Fallout 76, those kinds of games where it's like it's mostly just a single player game. Oh, Destiny 2, that kind of like it's mostly like you can enjoy it single player, but they're trying to get you in there buying microtransactions and playing with friends, and you got to be connected to the internet, and the story is kind of loose.
You gotta have friends.
But anyways, let me talk about Red Dead 2. Red Dead 2 is I don't know. I can't even describe it. It's not like even a game to me. I play it as like I'm experienced. I am Arthur.
It's a simulation game.
Yeah.
It's a simulation game, and it's just something I've been watching. Like I'm a big fan of the show Westworld, and it's very like I feel like I am, and that whole show is about like going into a real life theme park where they use robots to pretend to be. You can pretend to be basically a cowboy in this highly realistic world where you can't get hurt and all that kind of stuff until things go terribly wrong in the show. But in this game, I feel like I'm getting a taste of what that's like. It's very interesting. And
to me, something that Red Dead has pulled off in the little I know about it. I'm not a huge into the Western theme, so it doesn't quite appeal to me. But I definitely acknowledge the achievement of the game. But something that I've kind of gathered is that it's you have these simulation games like Euro Truck Simulator, right, where you're driving a truck across European highways, and every little detail about driving a truck is accounted for, right? Every little knob, every detail. Oh, you need to account for wind, your baggage, your all this other stuff. Every little detail. But the game is just about driving trucks, whereas Red Dead is a simulation of living in the Wild West, and it has accounted for every detail about living in the Wild West, which is an incredible technical achievement.
And I'm the kind of person that really takes my time in games. I'm only halfway through the game. And I feel like I've been playing it since the day it came out.
Wow.
And I'm just taking my time. I walk it. I don't use any of the fast travel stuff. I don't take any trains or anything. I ride my horse places. I take care of my horse. I keep it fed. I hang out with everyone at the camp and swap stories with them, and I go hunting. And I just kind of take my time with the game, and I'm completely okay with that. Like I'm not bored yet. I'm still enjoying it.
Well, that's very good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a video talking about Red Dead and the animations used, and yeah, the technical achievements amazing and the details amazing. But then the guy was saying, did they on in certain levels did they go a little too in depth? So like whenever you're picking something up, you can pick up, if you open a cabinet, you can pick up like this can or this thing or whatever. You can pick up exactly what you want, but he was saying that after a while of playing this, you just want to pick the thing up. You don't want to wait for him to pick it up. It's only a second or so, but it's still longer than some in many games than it should feel. Have you found that it's repetitive, and it just feels like, come on, just pick it, just give me the thing.
I value the immersion so much that I'm okay with it.
Okay, interesting.
You and I are very opposite people.
Having beaten the whole game, I can say that it never really bothered me that much.
Okay, so I think
honestly,
on this game, I think we have both examples here. I think in this game it's either you love it or hate it, because in that same video, he mentions streamlining and how ammo pickup, you just walk over it like most games. You just walk over it and you collect bullets.
Yeah, that is true.
But
yeah.
on every other thing except for bullets, you have to go. I now want this, and Arthur goes and picks it up. So he was saying how streamlining is very good for games, but he just thought it was very interesting that they elected to remove all of that and go for animation, except for the tiniest little infuriating minutia of picking up bullets, which he was thankful of, but he was just surprised that maybe they went a little too deep into it. But
you're usually picking up bullets. So you can pick up normal packs of bullets when you're just in the world. The only time bullets pick up automatically is from dead bodies, and the only time you're walking around dead bodies is usually during combat, when you don't have time to kneel down and pick up a bullet, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're Far Cry, in which case they make you do it. At least in Far Cry 3. 3 and 4.
But it's interesting to see that both of you didn't mind. You guys were totally down for it.
Yeah, I don't know. I enjoyed GTA 5, and I'm enjoying this game. I'm getting more and more interested in Rockstar's games. I'm not interested in their multiplayer really at all. And that's sad. It makes me sad that there was never any GTA 5 story DLC.
It was planned, and then they canned it.
Yeah.
After
so
the multiplayer did so well, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
We don't believe in customer satisfaction. We believe in money. Pools of money.
Apparently, that's true for their workplace too. But again, that's a whole other conversation.
That's something.
And oh man, GTA 5 also ruined one of my favorite YouTube channels. They used to do like tons of different content, and it was originally a Minecraft channel, and they did like adventure maps, and they did like their own stories and all this kind of stuff. And then they got into GTA 5 multiplayer, and it made them so much money that that's all they do now, and it's boring.
Yeah.
I feel like that's just to finish off, basically. We're deviating off, but it's fine. I feel like that's what a lot of YouTubers have done with Fortnite as well. They probably like noticed, hey, this is picking up. I'll hop onto it now. You look it up, and it's literally everywhere. So I feel like
beat that dead horse.
That's probably what happened to a lot of channels.
The problem is it's not a dead horse.
It will be.
It's beating the dead horse that is Unreal Tournament.
Yeah, that horse is still going.
Cries. So we actually have
all that to say.
Or sorry, go ahead, Michael.
I was just gonna say all that to say we like games. We like stories in games, and we're happy that that's still alive in 2018.
Yeah.
And we like rhythm games as well, and we're happy that's still kind of alive in 2018.
Well, for me, the main reason is that it's an interesting revelation in VR. Like it's a new direction in VR that is the logical step that no one saw coming.
Well, that's the thing. That's how anything's invented, right? It's like, hey, look, it's the logical thing, but I'm the first one to come up with it.
Yeah, and
they're the first ones who really.
I think if we're going to take away a catchphrase from this podcast, is that we like stories and innovation.
Yeah.
There's a question in the chat. As game devs yourself, when working, would you listen to a stream that's going over what is enjoyed about the game? And he clarifies later, saying, like in the sense of what Respawn did with Titanfall and their campaign. So I think the question he's asking here is, if we were working on something and we were like listening to a stream or a podcast or someone who was discussing what they enjoyed about
a game that we made, or
a game we made.
Yeah, would we would listening to that feedback be something we would do? And I think for me that's a very obvious yes.
Yeah. There's lots of. Oh, sorry, Nick. Go ahead.
I was going to say I can't speak for everyone with SkyPyre, but for me, I think I've watched every single video on YouTube about Halen
Yep.
or Blobs.
That's for sure.
Just to you know what, and when they're sitting there going like, oh, this thing's super broken, I'm like, great, that's something to fix, right? That's something to fix or to improve. So I think it's definitely like going and listening to that feedback. The more of it that there is, the better. Would we actively search for it?
Yeah, every time a video is made about one of our games, we post it and share it with each other and discuss. We don't always like get deep into it, but we definitely listen to it.
Mm-hmm. And
I mean, we're small enough that we can do that because there's not that many videos made about our stuff.
It's not like you look up Fortnite or Beat Saber and it's like, oh, here's 1,000 videos. I'm not gonna watch 1,000 videos.
But, oh yeah, those 1,000 videos, they just came out in the last like half hour.
Yeah, like exactly. But no, for sure. I think personally though, yeah, I'd listen to the podcast or the video or whatever it is. But I don't think I would. When you say when working, I guess he means like when we're generally just working on this game isn't done or whatever, or updating it. But when I'm actually actively working on the game, I don't think I'd be listening to it. I'd just listen to music, if that's what he means.
The way I like to consider this is that there's over 7 billion people on the planet, and there's 7 of us.
There we go.
So one for every billion people, and we're good.
Yeah. So the way I consider it is if we're working on something and we're sharing it with the public, and the public has ideas, it's unwise not to at least listen to the ideas.
Of course.
Where you've got 7, well, maybe not 7 billion because not everyone on the planet has internet, but like a large chunk of people that can offer up ideas and opinions. And while we may not necessarily agree or apply all of those opinions, there's always little things that we may not have thought of. I think there was something with Blobs, right? Somebody mentioned something at UGLX, and we were like, "Oh man, why didn't we think of that?" And then we added it in, but I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, I recall this. I just don't remember exactly what it was. But yeah, there was. Yeah, but it's great. We talk to people, or people give us feedback through videos or whatever, and then it's like, oh, that actually.
Well, I mean, for me, one anecdote that absolutely proves that you need to listen to testers or to players. If it's a game you've already released and you're doing updates, listen to your players. If it's before it's released, listen to testers, etc. Is with Halen, where we were doing some user testing with the charger enemy, which was for anyone who hasn't played it, it's the classic archetype of the charging enemy, right? They're bulletproof from the front, and they charge at you, and you have to dodge it out of the way and hit them in the back. It's a classic formula, but someone tried to guide them into a minefield. So we had an enemy that dropped mines, and then he was very surprised. He goes, "Oh, I thought if I let him into the minefield, it would blow him up." And I think me and Matt looked at each other and went, "Yeah, we're gonna do that." We wrote it down.
It will next time you play.
Well, yeah, like
next time you come in for testing, it's gonna do that.
We were watching him play, and he did his thing, and we're like, "What is he doing?" And oh my God, it's just one of those eureka moments. Like, oh, why that's genius. Mm-hmm. You're a genius, and we're stupid. I'm sorry. We'll get on that right now. Like,
yeah,
it was really cool to watch him play and figure it out. But I'm so sorry for him that you didn't get it that one time.
So in our last few minutes here for the evening, I think we've spoken praises about some of the best ones. Let's do a lightning round. Just say what is the worst one for the year, and why is it the worst in one sentence?
All right.
Worst that I played?
I will start. I didn't play it. Fortnite. It's a plague on the industry.
Okay.
Full stop. Go ahead.
Michael, go. Do you have one?
I was very excited for We Happy Few, but I hear it sucks.
I've heard that too, actually.
But it doesn't actually. I'm looking at the.
Unfortunately mediocre.
Yeah, that's about what I'm getting. I was hoping for another like a BioShock level style game, and I'm not sure if that lived up to that.
Tyson?
I zoned out. What was the question?
What's
What's the
lightning
worst
round?
game?
What's your worst game?
And
Worst
one
game.
sentence to say, worst game of the year, and one sentence saying why.
Oh, that's a tough one.
Matt,
Fallout 76.
you played it?
No, I haven't played it.
Okay.
But I mean, I was kind of excited about it because it seemed interesting and it was another Fallout game and whatnot. And then well, just looking at all the
for me it looked
problems,
bad.
all the bugs, all the security issues, the hacking, like all of it. And not to mention all the fact that all players are bored now.
Yeah, and I like what the chat just said. They sold a dev tool.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
Enough said.
Tyson?
Okay, I think I got it. Mine, Far Cry 5. Okay, we get it.
Oh,
Did that come out this year?
Really? I just got that. I just picked it up.
So here's the thing. So I played Far Cry 4, I think, right? Yeah, Far Cry 4 when it first came out on PS4. Played the entire game, 100%ed it. It was pretty cool. And then a Far Cry Humble Bundle came out for Steam. I was like, oh, cool, I'll pick that up. So I played Far Cry 1 and Far Cry 2, and it was literally the same game. Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon, I understand, is different.
By Far Cry 1, do you mean Far Cry 3 with Voss, or Far Cry 1, the game from 2003?
Far Cry 1, the game from 2003.
Ooh.
So, I mean,
bad game.
It is a bad game. But the idea is the same. Like, you're just this guy. There's some tyrannical government or some tyrannical person, blah, blah, blah. Murder them all and save the world. I got Far Cry Primal 2 and got bored right away. And then I got Far Cry 5 and got bored right away. Just because it's a concept that I've already played and they don't really evolve on it much. So I just don't care anymore. I get it.
Fair enough.
For me, it was partway through Far Cry 3 that I stopped caring. So I haven't played 4 or 5.
I mean,
4 was very good. 4 evolved, in my opinion. I know it didn't change much in the gameplay, but it definitely evolved some of the mechanics a little bit, which was nice. I think.
I think Far Cry 6 has the opportunity to mix things up, and I think Ubisoft is starting to do that with their games, because it seems that Origins and Odyssey for Assassin's Creed mixed it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, but are they going to start a big long series of games exactly like Odyssey and Origins?
The issue with Far Cry 6 going into like
Next one's going to
post-apocalyptic
be
zone.
Assassin's Creed Oregano.
Oregano. The issue with Far Cry 6 going into post-apocalyptic territory is that we've already played that as well. We have Borderlands, we have there's Rage 2 coming out soon, which looks really cool actually. And then Mad Max pretty recently that did well.
That was quite good.
So I don't know. And then of course Fallout.
Well,
I don't know.
All in all,
well,
I think we've had a good discussion. 2018 has been, in some ways, bad, but I think overall has been an amazing year for video games.
I think it's done an interesting thing where it's, like you mentioned before, it's kind of turned a negative face on multiplayer and a very positive face on single player, which, as a fan of single player games, excites me for 2019 and 2020.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
So we'll keep an eye out on that, and I don't know. I'm hoping for good things for 2019. E3's coming. Couple months.
Yeah.
Good vibes only.
Couple months.
Well, yeah. Well, it's coming.
Oh, there's one more question in the chat. La Frenchman says most hyped for upcoming.
Oh, jeez. I mean,
I don't even know. We'll come back to that in a month.
2077 looks pretty good.
Oh God, yes, Cyberpunk.
That's not coming out in 2019.
If it comes out this year.
He didn't say 2019. He said coming.
The Last of Us Part 2 also. That game looks fucking spectacular.
True. Yeah.
All right.
I want to play Dreams. That looks very interesting.
I'll be looking that up.
By Media Molecule. Yeah.
Doom Eternal?
I mean, that goes without saying.
Yeah, I think I'll go with that one.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us. It's been a been a good conversation while the tech worked. Sorry for the muffled voice on my end. I'm
back in the
hopefully I'll be
1940s.
back on to 2019 and not 1943. Audio quality. And thank you very much. See you later.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.